it's Joyce Conroy, host of the Block Party. Welcome to Ernie's Corner. Now, I am looking at the screen, and I'm going to post this too. This design, Sha Na Na, and I think of John Bowser Bellman and rock and roll. Ernie
Yeah.
Cefalu, how are you?
Hey Joyce, I'm there. I mean, this is my era. This is the music that I grew up from. When the first single I ever bought was Bebop Baby by Ricky Nelson. And all this music was what I was in junior high school. I mean, just making that transition from elementary school to junior high school, and all of a sudden you're a teenager, and this music that they reproduced in such a great way really when I got this assignment, it was like it was better at that time. It was the best thing I'd ever done, and I had already done the Stones song. I had already done Jesus Christ Superstar. I did a bunch of other albums because we were already at Pacific Pioneer, and but for me it was like a total. My God, and that's what's so great about the block party. You start out, you show that music, you expose that music so people can see it and hear it once again and hear the knowledge behind it, which you supply each time you do something like that. And for me, I think that's the thing that I enjoy most of the block party is that segment where you're doing those oldies and you're just, I mean, it's just, for me, I just turned 78 last week, and it's crazy because I feel like I'm 20 again. I don't know why, but it's just
That
kind of
is
crazy. And when we got an opportunity to do this, and you agreed to do the Sha Na Na thing, I was just elated. I mean, really, it brings back so many memories. And we didn't do a whole lot of work for record companies at Pacific Pioneer because by this time we started in 1972, and this cover came to us I think it's in the mid 70s. It was the mid 70s, like 1973, 74. And, I had never even heard of Sha Na Na until Woodstock, when they were at Woodstock. And it's like, oh my God, all this great psychedelic music and all these, but these guys with the gold lame suits and stuff. I mean, and you're right, Bowser with and just, they were like a cartoon, of that era, but they did it so well. They did the songs so well. They made them their own, but yet they were classics. And for me, when we got this job, like I said, we didn't do many covers for record companies. There were a few, but my partner Tony, and we had a third partner, a guy named Lou Morris, and he was our New York guy, because the two guys that I started Pacific Pioneer with were East Coast guys. They were born there, they grew up there, and so they were a fish in water there. I was the fish out of water. When we came to LA, I became the fish in water, and they were out of water. But when we had worked for the other company, we all worked for a company, and then we left to start Pacific Pioneer, and they had already done business with record companies. That's where they got their work, okay, because they weren't really associating themselves with the groups. Although I think the first time was with Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground when they did the Banana for the Velvet
yes.
Underground. Yeah, that was the guy that we worked for, and so he started a forming relationship with groups, but his relationship was with the guys in the record companies, the marketing guys, and the guys that were, handing out the album covers. And Pacific Pioneer was exactly the opposite. We worked with the groups. We formed alliances with Alice Cooper and Captain Beyond, some of these early groups, Grand Funk Railroad, and Cheech and Chong and Alice Cooper. So these guys that I partnered with had already done work for Karma Sutra Records, which was the record company that the Sha Na Na was on, and they had this opportunity. They offered it to them to do an album cover for Sha Na Na called Hot Socks. And I was like, when I heard that, it was like, oh man, come on, really? I mean, really, this is my chance to sort of document something that I grew up with. I was already in college when I started discovering all the other bands coming from San Francisco and the acid rock and, all that, the hippies that I was going to school with, the hippie I became, and so it was kind of for me, it was a way of putting a stake in the ground and saying, yeah, I was here when I was a kid, and this is what I loved, and so that I had that kind of feeling going to this. So we got a chance to do the album. It was called Hot Socks, and they shot the group that you see there in that background. And I'm sending you these images so
Thank
you'll have them
you.
all to show bigger, because it's an interesting cover, because they shot, my partner Lou and Tony were at this photo shoot. We didn't have anything to do with it, but be there, and they shot the group in that configuration, which really um, didn't fit an album cover. When you're dealing with a square, a rectangle doesn't really fit well. You need to compose the same way a painter would compose a painting. It's all mathematical. Composition and layout is all mathematical. How much you give to the most important things that you're trying to portray. And the group they couldn't be much bigger than they are right now, with a lot of space left and right, even if their logo wasn't the one that I did for them. Even if it was just typed straight across, which is all they really had until I did this logo for them. They couldn't have been a whole lot bigger. You got all this dead space left and right. So they sent me the photography, and that's the first thing I thought. And they're all proud of it. They're all like, "Oh, this is really great," and this great. And I'm like, you don't want to be the sourpuss. So I'm saying, yeah, but I think that it's going to have some issues, and I let me deal with it. And so I'm like, what? Okay, so I started working on the lettering, because me, bebop and bopping things, that's really Sha Na Na. Okay, so I did that. That's all hand lettered. Okay, and so I did that logo, and I'm thinking, well, okay, hot side. What am I? So I got this logo. Now the logo is bigger than they are, pretty much, on the cover, right? So I'm like, okay, what am I going to do here? And I put in the record, so it was like a gold hit record, okay, and Hot Socks. And I thought, well, what about going even further than they and their gold lame jacket stuff? When I was that age, we went to sock hops. Okay,
Yes,
that's what
yes.
junior high school had, and that's what high schools had, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure you did it too.
I
Yeah.
did.
And so, yeah. And I don't know whether they still do that. I don't think they do,
I wish
but,
they did,
it
because
was,
they were so much
yeah, me
fun.
too. Yeah, yeah. And especially going from elementary school to junior high school, you're in the seventh grade, and there's eighth graders and ninth graders in my school. And it was like, wow, you kind of feel like this is really great, but I feel so insignificant here with all these, it was the experiences you go through. So I thought that feeling that I had when I was at a sock hop, dancing with Darlene Triana or Shirley Jones, the girls that were sticking out in mine, Sherry Tilley, my first love. Uh, and that emotion was really about, I had a leather jacket, and because I played football and track. And so let's get some young people and dress them up like from that sock hop day, and take a picture of them, and then we'll use them in that remaining space to sort of balance out the cover, but even further along the idea of sock hops and dances and hot socks, it all. And then the back cover, we shot them, and then we had smoke coming up out of their shoes.
Oh, that's
And
great.
I took the record and divided it into the segments, and put the guys, each one of them with their signatures in that. And again, trying to make it a little bit like when you turn it over, it's like the joke and then the punchline. Without the back cover, the front cover is really kind of okay, but then it's telling the joke. But how does it end? Well, it ends with their socks smoking, and there's the group in this record shape, and so it really, for me, this album. And then, of course, we did the ad that you see over here on the other side. And then the lettering, I'm very proud of that lettering. I mean, I put it right up there with, the Bee Gees or Alice
It's
Cooper, any of
nice.
those other ones that I did it. And when I look back at when I did all these kind of logos and stuff, and there was no computer to really do it with, it was all done by hand, and it was with at least it wasn't ruling pens that draftsmen use. That's how it started. I actually did a few that way. And then the rapidograph pen came along that had a cartridge in it that would hold India ink. And the India ink was the blackest, so that's what you needed. It was most opaque, so that's what you needed to do lettering like this. Otherwise, it would be gray and it wouldn't photograph right and stuff. So you needed that. And somebody invented what was called a rapidograph pen that had a cartridge with India ink in it, and it had all these different point sizes, from real finey, tiny hair lines to big thick ones, and it was a whole set. So I was lucky enough to be there when all that came along. So I was able to do a lot of it. Because I look at these things now and go, man, I mean, sometimes I talk with Bob Inglesby, who does my stuff now. He'll create it. Now I just do sketches mainly. Unless it's something I really want to do, I do a sketch, a tight sketch, give it to him. He builds it like that in the computer and can do it with all different colors and do all kinds of things with it that I could never do. So it's just become a more efficient way of doing that. But I still kind of look at these things that I did and I'm like, man, I don't know how I did that. I don't know. The Bee Gees logo is another one. I mean, it's all those lines are consistently thick. I mean, it doesn't go wavy. It doesn't go thick to thin. And I'm looking at that going, man, the guy who did that, he must have been pretty good. And I'm like,
That is
wait a
true
minute,
talent.
that's
Yes.
me. Yeah, that's me. So it's kind of funny like that when you start thinking about it. But the way that we got into this album was not only because of Tony and Lou's relationship with Kama Sutra Records. The guy who was producing this album was a guy named, you probably heard his name, is Jack Douglas. Okay, and
Oh,
Jack was partners originally with Bob Ezrin. They had a company called My Own Productions, and that's where we first met Jack and Bob when they were working with Alice Cooper. And and then that also brings in Shep Gordon and our relationship with Alice. And it's funny how life, and we've talked about this in the past. There's a book called The Celestine Prophecy, and there's 3 volumes of it, but the first one is the most moving. And what it is how relationships and people, how people come in and out of your life. I've had people come in and out of my life that I don't even remember, but the ones that I do remember, I think about them a lot. And I think about those times that we were able to do stuff together, like Pacific Pioneer. Once the main core of the guys left, it was interesting because, Joyce, our industry was in the record business was depleting. Our business in the corporate world was expanding. And the music industry was really, the album cover design was dying. It was like, thank God that we always kept one foot in corporate America, that we were able to make that transition. At the same time, the industry that we were leaving was, the art was really becoming less important. It was going back more to photography. And the industry that we were going into was using more photography and less illustration. So it was like a stage 3 rocket. The first stage was the core group. It was 5 or 6 of us, and we just really, made some incredible, pieces together. And then the second stage was them leaving and us going on to the second stage of moving more into corporate America, less into music. And now I'm in the third stage where, I look back at this stuff and go, man, oh man, this is really, this is quite a legacy, and thank God for you and the Block Party and, other people that want to know these stories. And it's just been so wonderful. I get a lot of feedback from our neighbors on the Block Party, and I see your correspondence with them. And, it's like doing this album. When I do this show every week, it's like coming home for the day and hanging with everybody and people who really want to hear about it, know about it. And the last thing I'll talk about is the ad that we did. So we were able to take the whole thing and make an ad out of it. And, again, the album was really, really a good album. I don't know whether you've ever listened to it, but it was a pretty amazing album. And, the other thing is that logo became quite the thing for them. In 1977, they got a TV series, and they paid us to use that logo in their TV show. The same thing happened with Tony Orlando and Don. He paid us to use our logo in his show with Don. And the Bee Gees, who used it in a movie and used it on other stuff, they paid us to use it. So, it was really kind of neat to have these things that I did and people appreciating them. And now, a lot of people, because of the block party and the internet and doing some interviews and stuff. And again, like every week coming home to the block and being able to talk with you and the rest of the family here, it's really a great experience for me.
Ernie, and
And,
a lot of your designs. By the way, we are chatting with Ernie Cefalu. This is Ernie's Corner. Ernie, the founder of Pacific Pioneer, and we are looking at Sha Na Na's hot socks. Ernie, the designs, they also bring up memories. And then what that does, especially if you're doing work for a group, it channels a song in the person's mind. And I
yes,
find that's what it does for me and the feedback that I receive. And that design, I mean, I am looking at that couple dancing and then seeing
yeah,
the group there. It's talking to me, hon, as we say
yeah,
in Baltimore.
sure. And I think it talks to younger people as well. I mean, maybe in some towns they still do have dances and stuff. I don't know. I've been so far removed from that whole world, that I don't know what they do. But I would imagine it's still there's some kind of social thing that the school does for the different classes and stuff. I would imagine. I mean, I don't know, but do you know?
A lot of DJs, I know that one of the DJs, whom the movie Hairspray was based on, his name was Buddy Dean. He had a
Uh,
dance show in Baltimore when he was still living. He would actually continue those hops and he
oh,
would hold them in various venues, and then people would still come back, people that were affiliated with the show. They would bring their relatives, and it was like the generations were finding out. So I'm sure there's many DJs, I've been hearing about that, they still hold a lot of those in various locations and venues in different areas.
I think, we need more of that. We
We
need
do.
more of being able to be with one another and be able to enjoy each other and enjoy the moment. I mean, I remember looking back again, to when this music was all the rage. Uh, there was such an emotional connection.
Yes.
And it's funny because music ended up becoming my career, or at least part of my career. And all I did was enjoy it when I was young. When I never ever dreamed that I would ever do an album cover. I remember being in college, and there was a kid named John Bagley who was a photographer. He did the all the photography on the first Country Joe McDonald and the Fish album.
Oh,
He did all
wow.
the photography. Okay, he was a really good photographer. He recently passed away, God bless him. But we did some projects together. It was really great stuff. And sometimes it was Clarion Car Stereo, and maybe one of these shows we'll talk about Clarion Car Stereo. We were their first ad agency when they came to the United States. And so there's a lot of things that bring back those memories. And I remember in college, I was a freshman, and I knew John, and there was a few other people. We all kind of hung out together as freshmen, and he had this cover that he had done, and it was like, wow, that's really, oh man, that's amazing, and you're just incredible. But I never even then thought that I would ever make music, a vocation. It was more about going to New York and working on Madison Avenue and being the ad guy. Yeah, music was, as a fan, music was very important to me, extremely important, especially when I was in college. And when I was in New York, the Madison Avenue thing, I got that dream. It came true. But all of a sudden, there was this opportunity. It's like the crossroads, right? You can go this way and you can be the ad guy because you're already doing that, or you can go this way and make music something that's dear to you, because ad business was more about working on Madison Avenue than what accounts I worked on. And I worked on some pretty good accounts, Ralston Purina and ITT Liver Pump Coast, New York Life Insurance, but it was as boring as it sounded. I needed something more, and that's at that crossroads. That's where I made the decision. My heart said, and my soul said to my brain, hey, you're a music lover, go that way and see what happens. Take a chance.
Yes.
What the hell? Life is short. You know, people say you only live once and do it. Okay, just go ahead and do it. You only live once. Well, that's not really true. You only die once. Okay,
Very
you
true.
live every day. Okay, and that realization really paid off for me because I could have gone the other way. I mean, I was already doing it. I was already becoming somebody on Madison Avenue in these agencies. And but it just was, and you know what else? It was really political. And that's one of the reasons why my partner Tony and I and Lou left the guy we were working for. It became such a bad thing. It was bad for all of us. It was so political and it was disgusting.
Yeah, it gets that negative energy, and then you can't create in that,
Yeah,
and it just
yeah,
stifles you. It was a very good decision that you made. It was
yeah.
a decision, a life word decision, no matter what.
Well, you know, I was young enough to make a few mistakes and still start over, you know. I mean, these days at 78, you don't get too many chances to make mistakes and start over. But the good news is that I don't make any mistakes. I choose the right clients to work with. If I get a bad vibe, and we've talked about this, and I've told you a couple
Yeah.
of experiences that have come along, and it was just like, no, I know where this is going to end. I've been down this road before. I just say no. Okay, so now I'm able to say yes to the things I love. This troubadour thing, this salute to May Pang and the Lost Weekend that just happened last week. I mean, I did that poster in 3 days. Bob Inglesiepen and I, we put that together in 3 days, and you know the show went really well. You know, she's doing. You know, the woman Jerry Palumbo who put it on is really quite accomplished herself as a musician, and her husband is a he tours with Kenny Loggins. He's his sound guy and stuff, and he's been with him forever. He said Kenny Loggins is a great guy. I knew Jim Messina, but you know Kenny Loggins. I always the Pooh Corner song, man, just
I
gets
remember when we played it. That's
yeah
a great song.
yeah. Well, you know Bonnie and I when we went to New York every night, I would read a few pages out of the Winnie the Pooh books. They were big for us, you know. And anyway, so all said and done, choosing a song.
Oh, I want to hear this.
Okay. Shaboom, okay, is a song that was always a favorite of mine from the original,
The
along with,
Chords did it, yes, the
yeah,
Chords,
yeah,
and then the Crew Cuts did it too, a
yes,
Canadian vocal group.
yes, exactly. The second one would be Don't You Just Know It?
That's another good one, good
Another
R&B
good,
song.
yeah. And see, that's what I'm saying. Everything you know all the stuff behind it. It's so
I'm a
wonderful.
nerd.
I'm just telling you what I like, but you know, there was a lot of talent in Sha Na Na, the group. And for me, you know, Denny Green, his song "Dreams Come True" is the one that I would pick.
Okay.
I don't know whether you're familiar with that song. It's his own song. He wrote it, and it's amazing. That's what I would pick.
Just good stuff. You know, and Grease, that Sha Na Na was a part of Grease, the
Yes. Oh
movie.
yeah. Oh
Those
yeah.
magic
And
changes, that is another, oh, I love that song.
yeah, yeah. They were really great. And again, you know, I think that like we talk about all the time, music will live on forever. You know, and people, I mean, there's still music from medieval times that, you know, there is a group of people that go to those, you know, where they dress up like medieval times. And they go to that restaurant where they have the knights fighting and stuff and there's dirt everywhere. You know, I mean, it's so funny because there's people that actually get into those things and it's great. You know, I mean, it's really great because that's what makes it live on. And I think what we do, what you do, what I do, what I've done, you know, will live on forever as long as people have eyes and ears. You know, they constantly rediscover the music and then the art, the images and stuff that went with the music. So.
And thank you, Ernie. Thank you so much because you were a major part of that. All the sharing that you do is
Yeah.
so wonderful. And we get to see it, you know, each week and we get to hear it. And just to remind our friends on the block party that you have a YouTube channel, Ernie's
Yeah.
Corner. So if you like to see the video, you know, that we posted in full
Well,
and we give you a little tease.
I put it on 3 or 4 of my sites.
Thank you.
including on some sites that that aren't my sites, and it's all good. There's an Alice Cooper site, there's a Burton Cummings site, and they just love it, because they hear the stories as well, and there's so many people that love the backstories, and I just love telling them, and I love telling them to you because you add so much value to what I have to say. You really do. We're a
Thank
great
you.
team. We're a great team, and we were talking about that earlier. It's a great relationship we have, and I think people feel it. I think they feel the camaraderie that we express and the respect that we have for each other, and that's hard to find.
It
Without
is.
ulterior motives, it's a hard thing to find in another individual. It's just how it is, how it's become, but, again, I meant it when I said I feel like I'm coming home every week when we do this segment. And again, I appreciate so much you being able to let me do
And thank
it.
you for being a big part of it. Ernie, going to give you the old peace out, my dear.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yay. Okay, kiddo. Take care. I love you, and I'll see you next week, everybody.